Is it live? Is it live? Let me check. Yes, it's shown live. Let me double check again. Okay, hello parents. This is Coach John here from Learning Out of the Box, and thanks so much for seeing me the second time. Yeah, second interview for today. Yeah, and today we have a special friend of mine. Her name is Kavita. And hello, Kavita. Hi.
Hi, John.
Hello. Okay, so probably I just give a sharing on what Kavita do, and then what's the topic for today, and then you can share with us your backstory. Okay, so Kavita is an authentic leadership coach, wellness expert, speaker, trainer, and mentor. And today we are going to cover well-being during this pandemic. What's your opportunity? All right, so over to you. Share with us your backstory and how you end up doing what you are doing today.
Sure, John. So I started way back in India. That's where I was born in Mumbai,
Mm-hmm.
and studied there. Got my bachelor's in psychology.
Wow.
Moved to the U.S. And moved to the U.S. for further studies. So when I moved to the U.S., I moved there to get my MBA in organizational development. Um, I lived there and I worked there for about 16 years. And San Francisco is home to me. And then from there, I followed my husband and we moved to Vietnam, where I was trailing spouse, but I still continued to work for this company in the US for about a year.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew that was not sustainable because I had two preteen kids at that point in time who were also adjusting to a new country and to a new way of learning. Um, and my calls would go on with my boss, who was in Florida, up until 1 o'clock at night, and then back would start at 4 o'clock in the morning with my team, who was based in California, and it was just not working.
Mm.
So about a year after moving into Vietnam, I took some time and thought about what I truly loved about my job, and it was the one-on-one coaching and the relationships that I built, with my clients. Um, and so at that time, I flew to Singapore, incidentally, and I got a proper certification in life coaching, which
Ah.
was different than any of the other executive coaching and group work and certifications I had before, because I was focusing now on the overall life aspect of every client I worked with. And went back to Vietnam and pretty much practiced with anyone that I could. And in Vietnam, that means a lot because a lot of people speak purely Vietnamese there. So it meant I
Mm-hmm.
did a lot of work with expats. I did a lot of work with entrepreneurs who spoke English. I did a lot of work with Viet Qs, people who had returned back to Vietnam. Um, and then it was back in 2014 when my daughter's grade 5 teacher reached out to me. And she reached out to me because she was going through a really rough patch in life and she wanted a life coach. Her sister had gone through life coaching and said it was excellent, and she was recommending it for her. Um, and so she and I spent some time together because we wanted to make sure, that the teacher-parent relationship didn't get affected through this whole coaching that we did. And once we were sure about that, got permission from the school principal. And over 12 weeks, I met with her every Thursday evening from 4 to 5:30, and we coached. And 3 months later, she came out of this relationship a completely different person,
Mm-hmm.
and I came out of the relationship a completely different person as well. For her, she claims that going through life coaching made her a better teacher, it made her a better colleague, it made her a better mother, it made her a better daughter, and just helped her in every aspect of her life. And for me, before I went through this coaching with the teacher, a teacher never did enough for my kid, right?
Mm-hmm.
But after I went through coaching and saw the way she thinks, the amount of work that goes into her lesson plans before she even shows up in class, um, even the amount of time she spends knowing my kid and the way she understands my child,
Mm-hmm.
which is something I wouldn't normally have expected of a teacher. But when, every now and then when I would go into parent-teacher meetings after, she would be talking about an aspect of my child that maybe I hadn't picked up on, for example. So all those things just completely changed my perspective about teachers, and just threw me into really deep depths of reflection. And when I emerged from there, I knew that I wanted to try and do as much as I could to help teachers with their own personal wellness, because also there is this very beautiful kind of web effect. When teachers' wellness is taken care of, then the wellness of the child is automatically taken care of, because the teachers show up as their best selves in class, give their most to the children, and the children truly have a very positive and rewarding experience.
Wonderful. Wow, that's a very long story, and I thank you for sharing, because it really shows the different countries that you were in, and then also different, and also which gave you a lot of experience when you work with human beings. Yeah. I think because life coaching, in my own opinion, is not a very common thing in Singapore. I mean, at least based on what I know. Yeah. So could you share with us actually what covers the different aspect of life coaching, and when you say awareness of a person, what do you mean by that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, life coaching per se is about helping someone move forward in their lives. If they feel that they're stuck in a way and they're not able to get out of a thought pattern, if they feel that they want to do something but haven't been able to do it, that's when you would normally go to a life coach. And you don't, it can be event driven, it can just be to go there and discover yourself further, to, to be more productive, to be more proactive, to have someone that you can be accountable to along your journey. A life coach basically helps you learn more about yourself and figure out how to fine tune what it is you need to do in order to be successful. And along those lines, when I talk about focusing on the well-being, the idea is to, help people understand that if they're doing certain things, they can get into a certain pattern of thinking, which could be negative. Almost like, I'm not good enough. I have tried this before. It hasn't happened before. Chances are it's not going to happen again. All of us have this little voice in the back of our heads, or this little person on our shoulders, that's always telling us somehow that we can't be successful, or that we shouldn't take a risk because how will it look? And that is the voice of, our own conscience, but it's also telling us to not take a risk because we don't want to appear to be silly in front of someone else. And often enough, that voice takes over our lives and prevents us from being our true selves. So, a lot of that job that it is the life coach does is helps you to figure out whether what that voice is telling you is actually helping you, or if it is not serving you. And if it is not serving you, acknowledge that it's not serving you and push it in the background. So that's a lot of the work that happens through life coaching. And when you focus on, taking a risk and doing what you're truly passionate about, then that well-being just normally flows with it.
And you have shared that you have worked with many teachers and teachers leaders, yeah. And could you share with us some of the challenges that they face as teachers? Because I think in Singapore context, at least what I know, is my friends who are teachers, and they are telling me they are pretty stressed out, and also part of the stresses come from the parents. Yeah. So and the reason why I ask this is because I think it'll be nice to hear from you as a worker for supporting the teachers, and also hearing from them like what are some of the needs and how we parents can support them, rather than the teachers always coming forward to support our kids and the parents.
So I would say I'm more than happy to give you some of that information of what stresses the teachers out. But I would say, to answer that last question, parents could just go and ask the teachers what they need, because teachers are very honest, as I'm sure parents have seen. But one of the reasons why teachers are so stressed out is because their jobs are very emotionally exhausting. We don't realize this as parents because our overlap with teachers is very minimal. but they do spend a lot of time with our children, and they do know and understand them at a relatively deep level, given that, they're meeting them, in a formal classroom setting. They do observe, and I think a partnership between parents and teachers would be ideal for that child, because you're providing that holistic, well-rounded support for your children at the end of the day. But things that stress out the teachers. A lot of teachers are perfectionists. They want to do things right, and because of that, they put undue pressure on themselves. That's also one of the reasons why sometimes you feel they may pressurize your children. But the thing is that is something that they are perfectionists by nature. And again, I'm generalizing a little bit, but there are exceptions, but for the most part, teachers are perfectionists. Another thing to realize is that teachers see that good in your child and do want your children to truly experience it. So it's also very important from that perspective that if you support the teacher in helping your child grow, then the person who's going to actually benefit from it all is your child at the end of the day. So that's one more thing to pay attention to. And I think the core thing to remember is that teachers are doing this job because they are passionate about teaching. I don't know a single teacher who's doing this job because they want money. I don't know a single teacher who's doing this job because it's making them famous. I don't know a single teacher who's doing this job because it's giving them power. They're doing it because they're really passionate about it. So if, as a parent, you can always circle back to the reason behind why a teacher is doing their job, that just makes you more compassionate as well with working with them.
And could you also share like some of the challenges that the teachers shared with you, but as parents we can see? Yeah, because again, I really want to make use of this opportunity to understand your work and also the struggles of the teachers, and which are not seen by the parents. Yeah.
Okay, so I may need some time to think through this one, because
Sure.
each teacher comes with different needs that they need to address through life coaching. Right. And some of the stresses they feel are, with things like report writing and with reporting things up through their own schools, right? Because teaching your child is only a part of what they do.
Yeah.
But there is this whole lesson planning that goes into even being able to sit in front of your child and have that class with them, right?
Yeah.
For the lesson planning, there's individual work that goes in and there's group work that goes in. The group work that goes in is work with the other teachers. So there is collaboration that happens on that end, with the other teachers. Besides that, there is reporting that needs to happen, whether it's report writing that is, for the reports that come out to the parents, or whether it's reports that go, to the principals and potentially to the MOE, right? But more than that, what needs to, what parents can also help realize is that with all of these different things going on, when maybe they reach out to the teachers for extra help, whether it's through an email or whether it's through a need to want to meet the teacher, or whether it's through questions about their children, that is also adding another layer of work on that teacher, which sometimes she can get to immediately depending on what else she's balancing, but sometimes she may need a little bit more time to get to it. And again, I mean, these are all just individual,
Yeah.
stressors that teachers feel. I don't think it's a stressor as part of
Yes.
something that every teacher feels.
Yes. Yes. And I know that there are some friends who are teachers and they are very good in identifying kids who are on the verge of burnouts. Yeah. So let's say we look at it from the other side of the coin. Yeah. How can we tell if a person or a teacher or any person is on the verge of burnout and they need some external support?
If a person is not acting like they normally do, right? If they're
Mhm.
overly emotional, if they are overly stressed out, maybe overly aggressive, and it's not a norm of theirs to behave like that, those are all signs that something is going on deeper. And a lot of teachers, unfortunately, don't know when to ask for help because they just do what it is that they do because they're doing it because they love it. So they
Mhm.
just feel, okay, if I did a little bit more, it would be okay. If I put in a little bit more effort, it would be okay. But
Mhm.
they don't realize when they've hit that burnout themselves. So people who can help them figure this out is actually colleagues of theirs.
Mhm.
And, potentially parents who are saying, what's going on? Is there something that parents can jump in and maybe help with? Do you need um, a session maybe run for the children by the parents? Could parents help with, creating materials for a particular project? Things like
Mhm.
that.
Mhm. Yes, and in Singapore context, there are parent support groups lah. So and I know that many teachers, they function alone.
Mm.
Yeah. So yes, I think I can see a big nod of your head. Yes. Yeah. So like for example, what are the suggestions for teachers who are very self-aware and they know that their energy is getting low and they are on the verge of burnout? So what are some of the the activities that they can do by themselves to bring back that kind of energy?
More often than not, all they need to do is take a step back and figure out why they're just spinning in place and doing everything they're doing. It's just a little bit about reprioritizing, figuring out, whether everything they're working on is urgent and important. And
Mm-hmm.
if it isn't, then maybe they can push it out to the next day or push it out to the next week, or maybe they can delegate it to someone else,
Mm-hmm.
ask for help. Those are basically very simple things that teachers can do, but more often than not, they don't know to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So if they are very self-aware, just doing, maybe having a list of everything that they love to do handy, which they create at a time when they're in a good space for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And anytime they're really stressed out or having a very tough day, ensuring that they look at that list and just check off and add 2 or 3 things into their day beforehand. So they
Mm-hmm.
just balance it out for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
But if they can reprioritize the work they're doing,
Mm-hmm.
if they're not able to reprioritize themselves, if they could work with one of their superiors to try and help get a priority level on maybe 2 or 3 projects that they're working at the same time,
Mm-hmm.
then something like that will also help.
Mm-hmm. Yes, while all these are good, because I also know of friends who are literally burn out, and probably they have no one to delegate to because everyone else from the top is dedicating the task to them. Yeah, and yes, sometimes it's really hard for them to step back because with the amount of work that is chasing after them and so much backlog. Yeah, so I know.
Agreed. But if you're talking
Uh,
about delegation, John, that's where maybe the parents could come in. Maybe they look at doing things in a slightly different way, right? Where they can reach out to the parents and say, listen, this is my lesson plan. I will do number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4. Can some parents step in and help plan what number 5 and 6 and 7 look like? And then I'll continue with 8, 9, 10. And then that's the
mhm,
entire lesson. So it's also about coming up with a slightly innovative way to to create their lesson plans and to work through them.
mm. Yes, probably I think this is also a right time because I understand that a lot of times when the work that we do is also greatly impacted by our growing up years and also by the family that we are brought up in. Yeah. So could you also share with us like how's your growing up years like, and how it has also lead you to doing psychology as a major? Yeah. So I want to hear like stories behind.
Okay. So I am one of 3 girls. I am the youngest.
Sounds like my kids. I got 3 girls as well.
Exactly, exactly. You're a very lucky father. And the fact that you still have all your hair on your head is very impressive.
Oh my god. It's a week. It's a week.
Yeah, my dad lost his hair when we all hit our teenage years. So you have some more time to go for that, John. But keep those wigs handy. You never know. Um, yeah, so I grew up a very pampered third child, as I'm sure your youngest girl is as well. And my dad was extremely supportive of all three of us. We grew up in a very in a society that didn't necessarily at that time, back in the 70s, support the development of women. But my father was extremely forward thinking, and he always pushed us to be our best selves every single day, and that really helped me become who I am today. And I think it's made my sisters who they are too. I would say all three of us are extremely successful in what we do. My oldest sister works for Sony Music and runs that whole operation in India.
Wow.
My middle sister is an architect and has been an entrepreneur for her entire life. And then there's me, who's got 14 years of corporate experience and is now an entrepreneur as well. So we're all doing very well. We're all very strong-minded, independent women. And I think I have my dad to thank for that. So at some point, all three of your girls are going to grow up, and thank you, John.
Could you share with us, like, because you mentioned that your dad is more like forward thinking. Could you share some examples, like what exactly did he do on a daily basis that has brought across this forward thinking?
Mm. So my dad, he worked with the Merchant Navy. So he traveled the world for about 17 years. He was captain.
Wow.
And then after that, even when we lived in Mumbai, he worked with this company called Transamerica, which is a US-based company, and he ran their container leasing in Southeast Asia. So he was very well traveled himself. And if he ever heard grandparents or cousins or uncles and aunts saying things like, oh, she can't do that, she's a girl, immediately he would turn around and say, who else is going to do it? Because she's the only one here to do it. I don't have a son. Right. So he would balance it out in
Right.
that kind of a way. But he basically never let anyone talk down to us. He never let anyone tell us that we can't do what it is we want. Um, and he never let anyone, guide us in a way that, that we didn't think was what we wanted to do. So, for example, if someone said, study medicine and become a doctor, or you're a female, go, become a nurse, or, do something in a particular field, he would always tell us to take a step back and think of what we really enjoyed. And for my oldest sister, that was a bachelor in science and then advertising, and eventually marketing. For my middle sister, it was always architecture. For me, it was starting in the field of genetic engineering, because
Wow.
that was something that I was extremely passionate about. But then thinking through for myself that at that point in time, there was no future for genetic engineering. But psychology was what really interested me as well in my work. Sorry, in my studies. And so I remember talking to the head of department in psychology at a phase in my life when I was deciding whether I wanted to be a psychotherapist or go into the field of organizational development. And what she did was she took me to a mental hospital in Mumbai, and she took me there every single day for a week after college, just so that I could shadow her and see the work she was doing with her patients.
So
Because
as this she is your
she was my professor in
professor.
university.
Okay.
Yeah, in university, an amazing person. So she had me shadow her because she also practiced outside of university. And she worked in the mental hospital. So she took me every single day, and then she told me nothing on Friday. She said, we'll talk Monday. And she just kind of leave it be, right? So I'd seen all these patients, I'd seen the work she did. On Monday, when she met me in university, the first question she asked me was, Kavita, how much did you cry all weekend? And when I told her how upset and how hurt I was by what was going on with everybody that I saw and how unfair the world was to them and how they ended up in the hospital and their families had abandoned them because for some of them they couldn't afford their mental health. For some of them, they didn't know how to help them. She sat me down and she said, "You have a deep think about this because I feel you may not be cut out to be a psychotherapist. You're not able to separate the two."
Mm-hmm.
And so she and I still worked together for a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
And over time, I decided I wanted to go into the field of organizational development and focus on psychology in the workplace. And
Mm-hmm.
that's why I am who I am now.
Wow, that's a good story. And it sounds like you have someone who inspire you to take the
Also a
direction.
teacher,
Yes, yes, yes. And
right?
amazing. Yeah. Yeah. What about the parts that after that, what happened?
So after I decided I wanted to do organizational development in Mumbai itself, I worked with a company for
Uh-huh.
about a year. And then I moved to the US and decided I wanted to study further. So through all of this, my dad supported me. And when I went to the US, of course, my dad was not expecting me to go to the US and he hadn't saved up because that was never a plan for me. But
Mm-hmm.
the opportunity came along, and the university had offered me a partial scholarship.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to the US, and my dad gave me a check for $17,000. And he said, Kavi, this is all I have. But you go to the US, you start studying, and see what you can do with it. And as soon as I save up more, it'll be in your bank account. So I remember literally having that cashier's check for $17,000 in my bag with my student visa to go to the US and start studying. And with that money, based on the scholarship I already had, I knew I could go through 1 year of studies with no problem.
Mm-hmm.
But the MBA program was 2 years. So I remember in my first term itself, I went and spoke to the dean of the university, and I said, what else can I do? Where else can I help? Do you need any teacher's assistants? Are there any jobs that I can do on campus? And basically, I started inquiring about how I could help my dad so that he didn't feel he had to send more money my way.
Mm-hmm.
And before I knew it, I had that 50% scholarship. They made me a statistics teacher's assistant, which anyone who knows me knows I'm horrible with numbers, but I worked really hard on that one. I had a job in the post office on campus. And after 9 months, I was able to work off campus on my student visa in the US. So after 9 months, I started interviewing. I got the job of my dreams. And interestingly, they told me they would pay me whatever I wanted, which at that point in time, I was like, I want $17.50 per hour. And that's what I got because in my math, that's all I needed to push me through that second year. And that's how I got through my MBA program as well, with not a penny more from my dad, which he told me multiple times he was very proud of. And once I started working, I remember giving him back that money that made it that $17,000. He never cashed the checks because I found that out last year. He passed away,
Oh,
and it was really hard. But in cleaning through, his closet and going through stuff, I found all of those checks that I'd written to him that he never deposited. But yeah.
thanks so much for sharing, because I think what you have shared, I think I hear a lot of things. It's a father's love, as well as when you go into a new land, you also try your best to take ownership. Yeah, so that there's no need for your dad to worry about you, and there's no need for him to send any more money to you, because
Absolutely.
you want to be independent.
Yeah, yeah.
So
But
talking
that's the
about
thing he brought up in all of us, right? We all wanted to be independent, and we all are.
yeah, so talking about your dad's I think I just want to dig a bit more to really understand. Again, because I'm father of three girls, so it's a reverse. Yeah. So as you share your dad's story of how your dad actually brought you up, what are some of the 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 important things, or what are some of the things that you feel that he did great as a dad? Yeah, as you're talking about it.
Yeah, so I feel one of the greatest things he did was he never set boundaries for us, right? We could do whatever we wanted as long as we were being safe, right?
Mm-hmm.
That would mean we were allowed, like he would, like if we would go to him and ask him for advice, he would always turn that back on us almost and say, "What do you think you should do about it?" Right? Um, I ended up marrying my high school sweetheart,
Oh,
and I
really?
remember, yeah, and I remember going to my dad and saying, Papa, what do you think about this? Do you think I should get married? I'm 24 now. Do you think I should get married? And he said, "Sweetheart, what do you think? Do you think that there is, any other way you're going to go?" And I was like, "No, not really. I know I want to get married to him." And he goes, "Okay, so then maybe just have that conversation and decide what's best for you. And if you know it's something you want, then why wait?" Right. So there was always that level of support, that level of trust. Um, he always gave us that space to think for ourselves. And in a way, if I think about it now, right, as a certified coach,
Yep.
he basically just coached us all our lives. He
Mm.
never advised us unless we begged him for that information, and he always gave us more than what we could ever ask for. He showered us with love. He took care of us. We always knew he had our back. We could talk to him about anything that we ever wanted to. And he was just this very strong, grounding aspect of our lives that, still actually connects us three sisters.
Mm. Yes. And one quick question, because I think that being a dad myself, sometimes I do feel a gap between my girls and me. I'm not sure, is it because it's a, like, for girls they may not want to share some things with a male figure in the house. Yeah. So I'm wondering, have you experienced any of this at home, and if if yes, how do you manage it, or
Yeah,
how
so I think for
the gap?
sure, yeah, during those teenage years, things were tough.
Yeah.
But the thing is that but we knew we would talk to our mom, and our mom would always talk to our dad about the things that we didn't want to talk to him directly about, right? So if, for example, we were having a particularly difficult day, right, we would just go and lie down in his bed with him. And he would just be like, he didn't even have to say anything, most of the time. Like he would, like if he was sitting up in his bed and reading, and I'd just go and lie down next to him. He knew that I would go and lie down next to him when I was having a bad day, so he would not ask any questions. He would just basically put his hand on my head and just stroke my hair, and that was it. We didn't really need to talk a lot of times. It was just knowing that, okay, someone's here to take care of me. I don't need to stress. um, but anytime my mom went told him about, like, say, a problem that we were having,
Mm.
or I remember this one incident when I was going to college, and my college was pretty far off from home. But someone on the bus, just behaved in a not so good way, and
Mm.
that really upset me.
Sure.
And I came home and I spoke to my mom about it. And she spoke to my dad. And I remember at the dinner table, he brought it up and he said, Kavi, talk about it only if you're comfortable. But I want you to know that we all care. And if there is anything you want to share, we will all listen. So he would make sure we always had dinner on the table together. It was me, my mom, my grandparents, and my two sisters, and my three dogs who were around the table. We were
Wow, so
all
many dogs.
always together when we ate dinner. But when one person spoke, everyone listened.
Wow, I mean, this is such good bring up, and I can really hear from your story that your dad, I mean, he definitely loves the whole family, and also he's a very wise man.
Absolutely.
Yes, yeah. So as we shared, so how did this impact on your parenting style on your kids?
So I think one of the biggest things that this did for me was made me realize that I wanted to be more of a coach than a parent.
Mm-hmm.
And the youngest years of my children's life were the toughest because I couldn't be a coach.
Mm.
Because you have to do things for them, you have to help them, you have to, get them organized. But as my kids got older, and as quickly as I could, I would get them thinking for themselves. So my daughter, who is now 18, is on her way to university. And she has picked a field of study for herself, which is a beautiful compilation of everything she loves to do. And part of that reason for her to even pick that field is because over the years, through all the questions I have asked her, she has gotten very clear about what her passions are.
So lucky.
Well, it's something that all of us parents can do because we observe our kids all the time,
Yeah.
right? So, for example, she loves biology. So I would always ask her, what do you love about biology? What aspect of it do you enjoy? Why do you like biology more than you like physics? What is that difference in it for you? Right? And then she's very, very athletic. She was on her school's competitive swim team. And that's one of the reasons she chose that international school that she went to
Mm-hmm.
because of their good swim team.
Mm-hmm.
But also because they worked with the Special Olympics team, and she also worked hard to become a swim coach herself in her free time. And when we lived in Vietnam, she worked with children, and she was coaching during her free time. And part of the reason, so even when she said, Mom, I want to teach other children how to swim, like I would ask her why. And I am hydrophobic. I know how to swim, but I am deeply fearful of the water. And if my feet don't touch the ground, I panic. So that's a little bit too much information, maybe, but that's me.
Yeah.
And my daughter was then, I would say, about 13 years old, and she told me, she said, Mom, I want to be a swim coach because I don't think anyone should grow up being scared of the water like you are. Right. So right then she knew that, but this is her thinking, right? As a 13-year-old, if she's clear in her mind about these things, it's a good thing. So she loves physical activity, she loves the water, she loves biology, and she loves children. And so what this has culminated into is she is now heading to the US to do a undergrad in health sciences and in psychology. And she wants to become a pediatric physical therapist
Wow.
because in Singapore, she worked with the Special Olympics team. She coached them on the weekends because she loved working with them. And she loved the innocence of these grown up people, right? But it was that innocence that attracted her to them. And
Mm.
that's why she knows she wants to work with kids. So it's just a culmination, and it's all about helping them get clear about their why. And once the children know why they want to do something, they just put all of their energy into it.
Mm. Wow, this is an amazing story. Yeah, and as a sharing, I was like going through in my mind that at least how I was brought up is if we want to swim, probably the parents will send a child for like swimming enrichment classes. So if the child wants to learn something, or probably the parents will send them for that kind of enrichment classes that teach them that. Yeah. So what I'm hearing from you, how your parents your kids is also giving them the space to explore as well as yes, they know what they want, and parents are just helping them to gain more clarity and also giving them the freedom to say, hey, you want to do this, there are many opportunities out there for you to try and just go and do it. So
Absolutely.
it's totally a different kind of parenting style that I have faced in my growing up years, where a lot of things are all being tight.
Yeah, and I mean, to tell you more, so my daughter was also, captain of her soccer team. She also was captain of her volleyball team. So she's done all of these different things and then emerged into who she is, right? My son, on the other hand, who is now 13 years old and wants to be a professional soccer player and a chef when he grows up, he also does so many different things. So he also plays the saxophone, and there's like this whole holistic side to them, because they want to explore, you support them. They want to explore, you support them, but you don't keep pushing them in an area based on what your needs are. Because as a parent, sometimes I would feel, okay, you know what, they've spent so much time swimming. Even if they want to stop swimming, maybe I should push them to swim a little bit more,
Mm-hmm.
because I don't want all that time to get wasted. But
Mm-hmm.
I never did that, because it was more about, okay, if you want to change, you change, because otherwise, if I push you, you will get burnt out,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it was a little bit about bringing that balance into their lives also, and letting them know that it's okay to try something and not like it,
Mm-hmm.
but they don't have to, I'm not going to hold them accountable for spending that much time or wasting that much energy in learning something.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a learning experience at the end of the day.
Mm. Help us to understand, like, so when your son said, oh, I wanted to swim, did you send him for swimming classes, or he actually go and sign up by himself, or how does it actually work?
So the way it worked was, anything they wanted to do, I
Mm-hmm.
asked them to do through the school. So if they said they wanted to swim, I would say go and talk to your swim coach in school,
Mm-hmm.
find out what you need to do to get on that team, and then share that information with me, and let's see if we can make it happen. So
Mm.
it was always, if they wanted to do something, they had to take the initiative. It
Mm.
was not about, Mama, I want to learn how to play the guitar,
Mm.
right? I wasn't going to go out and find him a guitar teacher and buy a guitar and set up everything at home, because then it was me doing more work than them.
Mm.
So the idea is, if it is your need, you have to put more of an effort into it than me.
Wonderful. Yes. So it's like giving the child a lot of responsibility as well as accountability. If you want
Absolutely.
this, go and make it happen, because I'm not going to do it for you.
Right. I mean, I will organize it for you once you have told me what you need, because I think that is beyond your capabilities, right? I
Mm.
will pay for it, I will find the best teacher, I will do all of those things. But you have to show me that you're interested, and you have to put effort into it before I spend my time and effort on you.
Mm. Great. And in fact, right now I have the topic for today, which is well-being during the pandemic. What's your opportunity? And actually, I don't think we have gone out of points, because the reason why I actually went one big round is because I am a strong believer of the family's dynamic and support that will help the child to determine whether he knows how to make use of the opportunity that is existing right now. Because probably the door is still there, but if the child is not able to see it, is equals to it's not being there. Yeah. So during your when you parent your child, yes, I hear stories like giving your child the freedom to explore. So if this is not the norm in most families, in most that I've seen, where it's mostly top down. Yeah. So but the parent is very self-aware that, hey, I have to try to give my children more responsibility. How do you propose starting to do that at home if it's not a norm?
Maybe start by giving them responsibility of a certain chore or a certain task in the house, and letting them do it the way they want to do it. So, for example, telling one child that it is their responsibility to set up the table, right? Every single day before dinner, they set out the plates, they figure out whether the dinner tonight needs a fork and a knife or a spoon and chopsticks. They figure out what is needed based on whatever is being cooked. But then how they set it up is left up to them. So some of them, some days they may set it up one on top of the other. Some days they may set up a plate different. But if a parent goes in and says, set up the table and set it up exactly this way, with the knife being on this side, the spoon being on this side, the fork being on this side, then that's not helping them explore and grow. You have to give them guidelines, but give them a freedom to do things a certain way, right? Or one child's responsibility could be, make everyone's beds for this week, and then the other child's responsibility could be make everyone's beds the next week. And how they make the beds will actually, it's very interesting, because my kids both make them very differently, and it's nothing like how I would make my bed.
So how your kids made their bed?
Well, I should have taken pictures at that point in time, but like for one of them, you couldn't really see the sheet, because I would normally put a cover on the bed after, like the pillows and everything, so you just keep the dust and everything off. This child covered the entire bed with stuffed toys. And when I asked why stuffed toys, they said, oh, so that no dirt goes inside. So it was the same concept, but they just wanted their toys on the bed more than, another sheet, because a sheet is just a sheet. So everyone would do things differently, or fold the blankets in a certain way, or keep the pillows in a certain way, and things like that. But they need to have that little freedom to do things, to even identify, to think about why they're doing it, for one, and then to go a little bit beyond and figure out if they, if they even like doing it.
What about in Singapore context? And I know that you have stayed in Singapore for quite some time, for I think
3 years.
For 3 years, yeah. And probably you may have met some Singaporean friends like me. Yeah. So and as you know, many of our children, I feel that they're pretty stressed out because they study from morning till night. Yeah. So what are some of the ways that their parents can start to let them have the opportunity to explore while not breaking the system? Because sometimes it really is scary in the sense that if we bend the rules too much, we parents like, oh no, does this really work?
Absolutely.
Or should I bend it at all?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I would say, as much time as you have with your kids, make sure that it's 100% for them, right? So your time with your children should be device-free for you and the children. As much as possible, go out of the house. As much as possible, do something together, whether it's, so parents also need to be a little bit vulnerable, right? Like my kids both know that, swimming is not a forte, or even something that I would want to do in my free time. But if I told either one of them, let's go and hang out in the pool for 30 minutes, right? They know that they are a lot more capable and a lot more sophisticated in the water than I am. And they know that they are going to play that role of the parent in the water. So switch that role a little bit, right? Or I remember when we were in Vietnam, as a family, we learned Mandarin. And that made my husband and me very vulnerable, because both kids picked it up very fast, and very soon they were way better than us.
Yeah.
Right? So if there are things that you can do to show that just because you're a parent, you're not always right. Or, if you do something and you realize that wasn't the right thing to do, have a conversation around it and say, I'm sorry, I don't think that this is the way it should have been done. I did it because that was my knee-jerk reaction. But, let's talk about it. And you bring them up to your level, and you're always respecting them instead of constantly talking down to them. I think all of those things build confidence in the kids and let them know that, what, it's okay not to constantly, be right. It's okay. Even if you're wrong, you can fix it. And that overall just gives this sense of balance to the child, but it also lets them know that then they can come and talk to their parents about any and everything.
Wonderful sharing. Yes. And what I pick up from what you shared is, I think as parents, we can also be vulnerable at times. Yeah. But I think it's quite hard for some parents, unless they practice it within their own family while they are growing up.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, it can be hard, but at the end of the day, John, it's a learned behavior. And if you want your children, to grow up more balanced, then
Mm-hmm.
you have to do this for yourself so that you can offer it to them. You can't tell them, don't do as I do, but do as I say, because we all know that doesn't work.
Yeah, and they wouldn't buy it.
No, I think our kids are all too smart. I keep telling everyone there are version 2.0s. So whatever we did, they've done and they're going to do better at.
Yes, yes. And I like the parts that you shared, that the whole family was learning Mandarin together,
Yeah.
and the kids, and you realize that they did perform much better than the parents. And it
Yeah.
reminded me when me and my girls were playing the Nintendo Switch. Yeah, because I teach my girls how to do their schoolwork, and of course sometimes they get scolding from me. Yeah, but when we play the Nintendo Switch games, it's the reverse way. I always lose to them because they are way so much faster and so much agile
Yeah.
and so much more their response is so much faster than me.
Absolutely.
And then they'll scold me for being too slow.
And that's how it needs to be, right? They need to feel that they are at par with you at least somewhere, because that gives them then that self-confidence to even talk to other kids, or to stand up and talk to other parents if it comes to things like that.
Yes, that's great sharing for the past 1 hour. So I know that you have shared so many tips. So what would be one tip that you recommend for parents to take away right now if they want to practice what really works?
I would say, make a list of things that the children and you want to do together,
Mm-hmm.
right? Have that list. In my strange American accent, I would call it the wanna do list. But have a wanna do list somewhere available in the family. Every child gets to write on it, the parents get to write on it, and put it up somewhere where everyone can see it. And then pick activities from there, whether it's for a weekend or a holiday, or during, let's hope circuit breaker never comes back. But if it does, you've already thought through the things that you love doing as a family, and just start doing them. Um, and again, when you're doing those things, then make sure that you're, as a parent, not distracted. So
Mm-hmm.
even if you have a little amount of time, because that's all you may have if the kids are studying from morning to night, even if you have a little amount of time with them, you make it count. It's quality time, and quality time is actually way better than quantity time anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just about changing your perspective on it and knowing, instead of saying, um, you know, oh no, I have now I'm trying to get this work done, but I also have the kid and I have to also organize all of these things. Instead of turning around and looking at it and say, I have my kid for only 20 minutes right now. So
Mm-hmm.
let me put all of this aside, because as
Mm-hmm.
soon as my kid goes to bed, I can get back to it. But
Mm-hmm.
those 20 minutes, let me make the most of the time I have with my child. Because if you start thinking about the amount of time you have with your child as a percentage of the amount of time you will have with them once they leave home, you will start appreciating it a lot more.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and I think there's no need for us to wait until they are in their 20s.
Too
Now kids,
late.
yeah, now kids are even busier than parents,
Mm-hmm.
even at the age of like 10 onwards.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But if you think and say, okay, once they turn 18 and they go into national service, after national service, they'll go into university. Who knows at that point after that whether they will stay at home with you or not, right? If they want to go to university in another country, for example. From then on, you're only meeting them on holidays, and that's about it. So you can count
Mhm.
the number of holidays you have left in your life, which will be an overlap with them. And that is a huge wake up call for most parents.
Yep. Yes. Now I got one shock. I can
I
feel the
know.
shock. Yeah. Yes, great. Yes, we are already at 2. Still, I want to ask you one last question, which I always ask my guests, because we are running a Facebook group for parents who teach their kids math at home. And I think you are aware that Singapore kids have to take their PSLE at age 12, and probably right now the anxiety in most kids are pretty skyrocketing. Yeah. So right now, yes, the Kavita knows a lot of things of like life coaching, finding the balance. Yeah. If I may invite you to walk down the memory lane, down to your younger self, yeah, to the 12-year-old Kavita, and she's so close to you that she's looking at you into the eyes and you can almost touch her. Yeah. So what will you tell the 12-year-old Kavita? There's no
Breathe.
wrong or right. Yeah, there's no wrong or right.
No, I would just say breathe. Just take a deep breath. Life is going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
You need to make the best of it. You don't have to let life happen to you. You need to choose what you want to happen to you. So just make conscious choices, do things for a reason, and just be kind and gentle to yourself in the process. That's what I would tell her.
Anything else?
No, that's it.
Okay, thanks so much, Kavita, for being here and spending your 1 hour with us.
Thank you, John.
You covered from both as a parent and as a life coach. Yeah, so that's wonderful. Yes. Okay, so parents, please don't go off first. Yeah, so I'll start a Facebook Live, and parents, I'll see you around in this Facebook group, and hope you have learned something from this to be a more supportive parent for your own kids. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, don't go off first. I just want to catch up with you. Yeah.
Yeah.